What's going on, YouTube? So today I want to do a video that's a little bit of a hot topic recently in college football, and that is basically the topic of Big 12 expansion. So I have talked about this a lot, not really in my videos, but just in general. Like I said, a lot of my friends are college football fans, so we'll sometimes talk about just like who you should add, why you should add them, that sort of thing. And I wanted to talk about who I think they should add, why I think they should add them, and then what I think the Big 12 should do in the future. So to start, if you guys aren't familiar with the whole Big 12 backstory for expansion, just about a month ago, the NCAA approved the Big 12 to have a championship game if they were able to add 2 more teams. And basically, if the Big 12 is able to add 2 teams in this offseason, they could split off into 2 divisions and then have a championship game at the end of the year. They're thinking about doing this because this is currently the only Power 5 conference that does not have a conference championship game. Every other one does: Pac-12, SEC, ACC, and Big 10. But the Big 12 only has 10 teams, so they cannot do that. They are also the only conference where every team plays each other in the regular season. The only Power 5 conference, excuse me. So, for me, I think that there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. I mean, obviously they haven't added 8 teams yet, so I can't say that they're doing it the wrong way. Basically, I think that if they were able to pick up 2 teams that are not just okay with football, but they're also good with basketball, that's basically my criteria. The Big 12 right now is known as one of the 2 best basketball conferences, and I mean, football comes and goes. So I wanted to start with the 2 teams I think they should add, and the first one for me is BYU. I think BYU is the obvious choice here. They have, from year to year, they at least have a respectable basketball team. Like I said, from year to year, they at least have a respectable basketball team, and if BYU is able to maintain the consistency even after the Bronco Mendenhall era ends, then even better. BYU also, they already have their own TV network. They're honestly a pretty big media market for really just for every single BYU athletic team. So, like I said, I think that adding BYU would be the first obvious choice. Now, they are a little bit out of the way. I mean, the furthest west team right now is probably Texas Tech. So Utah from Texas Tech or Oklahoma State, Kansas State, any of those schools is about a 10 to 14 hour drive. And like I said, it's a little bit far out there, but so is West Virginia, so is Iowa State. So my second team that I think would be a very obvious add, but there's been a little bit of turmoil around adding them, and that's Houston. So, again, for you guys that are big college football fans, you know that Oklahoma and Texas pretty much run the Big 12, and I don't think that the University of Texas would let it happen where they're able to add another, pretty good smaller school in Texas. Houston is already taking up enough of the recruiting market as it is, as an AAC school. If they were able to be a Power 5 school with the standing they're in right now, that could be, I won't say a powerhouse, but that could be a pretty good team. They could also be a pretty good recruiting team. I think that Houston would be the most obvious add. They run an offense very similar to a Big 12 offense. They like to spread it out. They are a very good team right now, just as it goes. They are in the Texas market, so, they fit right into the Big 12 geographically. And, like I said, they're just a good recognizable brand name. Like, not a hugely recognizable brand name, but, we're not talking like Rice or SMU, something like that small. So, like I said, those are the 2 teams that I think they should add. There are multiple teams that would not be bad options either. A few of the different routes that have been talked about are expanding into Florida, trying to get either UCF or USF to expand the Big 12 market and their recruiting pipeline into Florida. And then also, an idea that I would actually consider being a pretty good idea is to pick up Cincinnati, just to give West Virginia a geographical rival. Now, the last situation that I think would be the most desirable if it could happen, but I don't think it's going to, is to pull one of the former Big 12 teams back into the Big 12. The most common ones mentioned are Mizzou and Nebraska, and I think there'd be a better chance of drawing Mizzou out of the SEC than Nebraska out of the Big 10, but I really don't think either is going to happen. Texas A&M being drawn out of the SEC is one that's been talked about as well. I think that has even less chance than drawing Mizzou or Nebraska out, and then also drawing Colorado back out of the Pac-12. And I don't think that's going to happen either. So, really, like I said, I think expansion, or also they're talking about trying to draw Louisville out of the ACC because Louisville almost signed with the Big 12 back when West Virginia joined in, I believe, 2011. So, like I said, there's a bunch of different theories. It's a pretty widely talked about topic on who the Big 12 should expand. Everyone that's a big college football fan has their own ideas on it. And those are just my ideas. I would honestly like to hear what you guys think that the Big 12 should add. Do you think they should add 2, 4 teams? Do you think they should just stay the way they are right now? It worked out well, okay. OU ended up making the playoff this year pretty soundly. Last year, obviously, they were left out. That was the whole reason for expansion talk in the first place. And when you think about power conferences as a whole, it does seem very likely that if there was one of the 5 to collapse, it would definitely be the Big 12. There's been talk about that also. I don't think that will happen anytime soon. But it is probably the most loosely held together conference. It's also one of the most geographically spread out conferences. The Big Ten's got the whole Northeast region, I guess north central to northeast. The ACC's obviously got the Atlantic coast, and it stretches a little bit to pick up teams like Louisville. The SEC, southeast, that's pretty self-explanatory. In the Pac-12, I think the farthest east they stretch is Colorado. Yeah, so those are my opinions on the whole matter. Like I said, I think BYU and Houston will be the best teams to add. I think if you just take it from a straight up marketing, Big 12 standpoint, just in adding 2 quality schools that would give the Big 12 the biggest boost, mainly in football, but also in basketball, I think that BYU and Houston would be the best ones. Like I said, there's a few alternate options. Some schools that wouldn't be bad choices are Memphis. UConn's even been talked about. Cincinnati, a solid school in basketball, also a school that's been decent in football. They trying to pry Louisville away from the ACC has a slight chance as well. So like I said, I wanted to talk about this briefly. I would like to know what you guys think. If you think that the Big 12, like I said, should expand to 2 or 4 teams, or should just stay the way they are right now. Let me know in the description or in the comments below. But that's pretty much it. See ya.